Hello, everyone. It's Taehyung. His voice trembled just slightly, the kind of raw, unfiltered tremor that only comes when someone carries the weight of truth. I know you've seen everything that happened, the live confession, the news, the chaos. I wanted to start by saying thank you. Thank you for listening, for believing, for staying with me even when the world seemed to turn against us. The camera on the live stream flickered softly, catching the tension in his shoulders, the depth of exhaustion in his eyes, but also a spark of resolve. I know it hasn't been easy, especially for Jungkook. Seeing him hurt, seeing us hurt, it's more than I ever imagined any of you might have to witness. But I promise you this, what you've seen is the truth. Every word, every action, it wasn't performance. It wasn't a lie, it was survival. The moment the words left my lips, the room froze. I've already chosen my bride. The laughter, the music, the chatter, all of it vanished as though someone had pulled a curtain over the world. My own voice echoed in my ears, harsh and unyielding, carrying a weight I could barely bear. And then I saw him, Jungkook, his eyes wide, his breath caught somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. I hated myself in that instant, hated the necessity of what I had to do, hated the way my choices had put the boy I loved on the edge of collapse in front of hundreds of people. The banquet hall's lights shone down like spotlights in a theater of cruelty. The cameras flashed, hungry for a reaction, but he didn't move, didn't speak. I felt the distance between us like a chasm, a pit that I had dug with my own hands. The bouquet of lilies at the corner of the room, flowers I had once claimed, reminded me of him, now seemed almost cruelly symbolic beauty and betrayal bound together. He stumbled backward slightly, trying to gather himself, but his composure cracked. I wanted to reach out, to grab him, to explain everything before he broke completely, but I couldn't. Not here, not in front of everyone. My hands itched to move, to erase the moment, but the chains around me, family pressure, corporate obligations, promises made before my heart even got a voice were real and unyielding. Earlier that day, everything had seemed normal. The rehearsal, the quiet moments backstage, the accidental brush of his fingers against mine had felt like the universe was still ours. Every small gesture, every fleeting smile now felt staged, rewritten, like a cruel joke played by fate. And in the corner of my vision, she stood elegant, composed, a stranger to everyone, yet the anchor I was forced to tie myself to. Jungkook's gaze never left mine. I saw the betrayal, the confusion, the silent question, why? And I had no immediate answer that would satisfy him. Not the half-truth, not the contracts, not the threats. The only thing that remained true was my love, a love I could not show, a love I could not defend openly. I watched him leave, the marble corridor swallowing his figure, his form taut with pain and fury. I wanted to call him back, to fight against everything holding us apart, but I was frozen, trapped in the same invisible cage he could see but not touch. My mother's illness, the threats of the company, the fear of losing everything if I defied them, they were shackles, and I had carried them silently for months. Later, in the quiet of my own room, the images of him haunted me, the way his shoulders slumped, the tremor in his hands, the unbearable silence that screamed louder than any confrontation. I wanted to cry, to confess, to beg him to understand, but even my tears felt inadequate. They wouldn't reach him, not through the barriers of pride, betrayal, and unspoken rules. I remembered the folder Yi had handed me earlier, the papers, the emails, the evidence of the arrangement made long before the trip to Jeju. My heart clenched. I hadn't wanted him to see this, to know the depth of the compromises I had been forced to make. And yet, he would find out anyway, through his own pain, through the world's glare. That night, I watched him walk along the Han River, his silhouette trembling against the cold wind. I knew he would answer if I called, and yet I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. When I finally spoke, my voice was broken, small, not the one from the stage. I never wanted this, I whispered. He heard it, I knew he did, but the wall between us was still massive, forged by public declarations and private sacrifices. You said you chose her, he said. My chest tightened. I did, but not with my heart. I told him, desperately, quietly, hoping he could somehow grasp the truth behind my silence. I had begged, fought, resisted, but the forces pressing on me were merciless. The system, my family, the company, they left no room for love. And when he hung up, throwing the phone into the river, I felt my own pulse shatter. Weeks passed. I kept my appearances, smiling like a ghost, performing a life that was only half mine, while my heart waited for the one person who had always been the center of it, Jungkook. And then, in the quiet of a studio under a single blue light, I played the piano, letting my fingers speak the words I could not say aloud. A melody of heartbreak, a confession without faces, a bridge toward him that only music could carry. The studio was dark, the single blue light hovering above the mixing console like a spotlight in a lonely theater. I sat there, fingers hovering over the keys, the room heavy with the silence of what had happened and what was yet to come. When Jungkook finally arrived, the air shifted. I didn't look at him at first. I couldn't. My chest ached too much, and the guilt was a weight I wasn't sure I could carry. Taehyung, his voice cracked the quiet. One word, but it carried everything. Betrayal, love, despair. I swallowed hard, fighting the lump in my throat. I had rehearsed 100 different ways to explain, 100 ways to make him understand, but the truth was raw, jagged, and too painful to soften. I didn't want it to be this way, I whispered finally, letting my eyes flick to his, just for a second. The look on his face stopped my breath. It was pain, pure and unfiltered, mirrored back at me in a way that made me feel naked, exposed. I know, he said, voice low, almost broken. I saw everything on stage. In front of everyone, you chose her. I couldn't lie. I didn't want to. I did, I said, voice barely audible, trembling. But not my heart. I fought, Jungkook. I begged. I tried to find another way. He sat down opposite me, the weight of his presence pressing into the room. Then why? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me fight for you? His hands gripped the edge of the console like he was trying to anchor himself to something real. I lowered my gaze, the memory of the contracts and threats and my mother's trembling face flooding my mind. Because I was afraid, I admitted. Afraid you'd hate me. afraid that if I told you the truth, you wouldn't stay and I couldn't lose you that way. Not then, not ever. He exhaled sharply, his hands letting go, falling to his knees like the weight of the world had landed there. You already did. You broke me in front of everyone. You made me feel invisible. The words cut deeper than I expected. I had imagined his anger, his heartbreak, but hearing them spoken aloud in the room I thought was safe shattered me. My throat tightened, and for a moment I wanted to crumble beside him, to confess everything, to let the truth spill out unguarded. I'm not invisible, I whispered, inching closer. You were always, always the only one I ever saw. His eyes flickered up at me, a storm of emotions, pain, anger, confusion, something soft buried beneath the surface. I wanted him to believe me. I wanted him to feel it the way I did. Then why did it have to happen like this? I closed my eyes briefly, remembering my mother, the company, the contracts, the threats, all of it pressing against my chest like a vice. I had no choice, I said. If I refused, they would have taken everything. My career, our future, my mother's treatment. I was trapped, Jungkook. I didn't choose her because I wanted to. I chose her to survive, to protect everything that mattered to us in some twisted way. He leaned back, a bitter laugh escaping him. Protect everything? You call this protection? You humiliated me. You made me question every moment we had. I know, I said softly, my voice raw, and I hate myself for it. Every second, every day, I reached out, trembling, and my hand hovered over his. The tension in the room was unbearable, the air thick with unsaid words and regret. He flinched at the motion but didn't pull away. Then what now? He asked quietly. Do we just pretend this never happened? That I didn't stand there watching you choose someone else? No, I said firmly for the first time since the announcement. We don't pretend, we face it together. I will wait for as long as it takes. I'll fight for us this time, Jungkook. I swear. His gaze softened slightly, though the hurt was still there, lingering like smoke in a room that had burned too many times. I can't just forget, he admitted. Not yet. You don't have to, I whispered, letting my fingers brush against his tentative, aching, familiar. Just let me show you everything I couldn't before. The silence stretched between us, heavy but not suffocating. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a fragile thread of hope. Fragile, yes, but stronger than despair. It was the first time in weeks I had felt it, and I clung to it like a lifeline. Then, without warning, Yi's voice came through the speaker. You have 30 minutes, go live, or the opportunity disappears. I looked at Jungkook, heart hammering. Are you ready? He hesitated, eyes searching mine, and I saw everything fear, love, pain, and the remnants of trust. Slowly, he nodded. Let's do it, he said. Side by side, we set up the camera on the dance floor. No makeup, no filters, only raw faces, trembling hands, hearts exposed. The chat exploded instantly, thousands, then tens of thousands, millions watching. I swallowed hard, looking into the lens. This is Kim Taehyung, I said, voice steady but charged with emotion. And this is Jungkook. We are speaking without Hybe's consent. Everything you've seen, the marriage announcement, the public appearances, the so-called celebrations was manipulation, blackmail, lies. Jungkook's hand found mine on the camera desk, squeezing tightly. I drew strength from it. We were no longer puppets. We were telling the truth, raw and unfiltered. They used my mother's health as leverage, I continued, the words tearing through me even as I spoke. They threatened my career, our music, everything, and we stayed silent for too long. Tonight that ends. The chat erupted in real time. Messages of support, shock, outrage, and solidarity flooded the screen. He looked at me, eyes wide, and I could see the weight of our shared pain reflected back. We were no longer just two boys trapped by circumstances. We were a force, and the world had to witness it. The red light on the camera blinked, signaling we were live. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe, to focus. Jungkook sat beside me, shoulders tense, eyes scanning the lens like he could see straight into the hearts of the millions who were already watching. I felt the tremor in his hand as our fingers intertwined, and for a brief second, all the fear, all the pain, all the shame we had carried collapsed into a single heartbeat of trust. This is Kim Taehyung, I began, voice steady despite the storm inside me. And this is Jungkook. We are speaking without Hype's consent. Everything you've seen in the past weeks, my wedding, our public appearances, our rehearsed smiles, was orchestrated. It was not our choice. It was manipulation. The chat exploded instantly, messages flying faster than I could read. No way. What's happening? Is this real? Taehyung, Jungkook, I believe you. I swallowed hard, keeping my gaze on the lens. I want the truth to be clear. They forced me to marry someone I didn't love. They used my mother's health as leverage. My choices, my career, everything I worked for, they threatened it all unless I complied. I obeyed because I had no choice, not because my heart agreed. Jungkook's voice followed, low but sharp, shaking slightly as the anger and heartbreak coiled in his chest. And they used me. Our relationship, our love was considered expendable. Every smile, every moment they presented to the public was framed to serve their control, not our truth. I could feel the tension in the room, even though it was just the two of us, and Yi monitoring the stream from behind. I reached for the folder we had brought, a stack of contracts, emails, medical notes, and signed agreements. My hands shook as I pulled out the first page, holding it up for the camera. This, I said firmly, voice carrying the weight of every sleepless night and every tear shed in silence, is proof. Every clause, every threat, every manipulation they forced upon us. Our silence was not consent, it was survival. Jungkook leaned closer, his hand brushing mine again, grounding us both. They told us if we spoke the truth, our careers would end. They told us our families would be punished. They told us to hide, to obey, to pretend. But we're done hiding. We're done obeying. The chat went wild, millions witnessing our exposure in real time. I glanced at Jungkook, and he nodded slightly, an unspoken agreement that this was our reckoning, our moment of reclaiming everything they tried to steal. I continued, holding up another document. This is the contract they made me sign. Look closely. They threatened my mother's life, Jungkook's health, our careers, our music. And for what? Control, image, power. We complied for too long, and the price was almost unbearable. But we won't comply anymore. Jungkook's voice broke at this point, raw with emotion. We are not the villains of this story. We are victims of a system built to control, manipulate, and erase the people behind the art. Tonight, we are reclaiming ourselves, our music, and our truth. A loud beep came from east side. It was the warning. 30 minutes until the connection could be traced, until the company could shut us down. My heart raced, but I didn't stop. I held up the final folder, shaking slightly. We are going to show you everything: contracts, emails, medical records, communications. They used us. They lied. They used love as leverage. They forced silence where there should have been freedom. Jungkook's hand tightened on mine, his eyes burning into the camera as if he could pierce the hearts of everyone watching. We trusted them, we obeyed them, and we were punished for our compliance. But now we are speaking, and the world will know the truth. I could feel the chat turning from shock into outrage. Thousands of voices screaming, typing, sharing. It was overwhelming, but there was also a sense of release. Finally, after months of being trapped, silenced, manipulated, we had our voice. They called it a marriage, a contract, a PR stunt, a celebration, but it was coercion. I said, my voice rising, the fire of anger and defiance cutting through every trembling note. We were never asked, never consulted, never allowed to choose, and they tried to make us complicit, but no more. Jungkook leaned closer to the camera, raw emotion coursing through his words. To every fan who loved us, who believed in us, and who stood by us even when you didn't know the full story, we are sorry for the silence. We are here to tell you everything, and we will not be silenced again. I exhaled sharply, holding my final document to the lens. Hype or whoever else thought they could control us, this is not just our story. This is the story of survival, of truth, and of love that cannot be bought, sold, or silenced. And we will fight to make sure the world knows it. The live feed didn't cut. We were burning every bridge, exposing every lie, and standing there, trembling but defiant. I realized something. This was no longer just about us. It was about reclaiming justice, about showing the world that even in K-pop, even in the most controlled, polished, and manipulated industries, the human heart cannot be caged. Jungkook squeezed my hand one last time before releasing it. I felt the weight of what we had done settle in a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and relief. We had gone live, we had spoken the truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. The screen blinked as the chat went beyond comprehension. Millions watching, sharing, commenting, some cheering, some crying, some outraged, but one thing was certain. Our story could not be erased. I glanced at Jungkook. His eyes were red, weary, yet burning with something I hadn't seen in weeks. Hope. And for the first time in months, I let myself believe we could survive this together. And as the live feed continued, showing our raw faces, trembling hands, and hearts laid bare, I realized that even amidst scandal, chaos, and heartbreak, the truth had power. And tonight, we wielded it. The stream had ended, but the chaos it unleashed didn't. My phone vibrated nonstop messages, calls, notifications. I didn't answer any of them. For once, I didn't care about the noise of the world. I only cared about Jungkook, about the quiet space between us where the storm hadn't yet reached. We had retreated to a small studio apartment Yi had secured. The room smelled faintly of coffee and damp paper. The rain outside tapping against the windows like the world itself was questioning our choices. Jungkook sat on the couch, knees drawn to his chest, staring at the floor as if reeling himself invisible. I perched on the edge of the armchair, trying to calculate our next steps. But honestly, there was nothing to calculate. Everything had spiraled beyond strategy. The first news alerts came in, headlines flashing across the web. Taehyung and Jungkook expose hype scandal live. Contract marriage and blackmail allegations. Rock K-pop industry fans react to idol truth reveal. I scroll, swallowing the rising panic in my throat. The world had seen our faces, our voices, our truth, and there was no going back. Jungkook finally looked up, eyes wide, glistening. Taehyung, did we just ruin everything? His voice was quiet but trembling, and I could hear the weight of fear, betrayal, and hope all tangled together. No, I said, though my own voice wavered. We didn't ruin anything. We revealed it. That's different. We didn't lie. We didn't comply anymore. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair, pulling at the damp strands. Different? Taehyung, the company is going to destroy us. Public opinion is volatile. Some fans are in shock. Some are angry. What if they cancel everything? What if they blacklist us? I stood, walking slowly toward him. Jungkook, listen. We've been silenced for too long. We were pawns, but we aren't pawns anymore. They can try to erase our careers, but they can't erase us. Not what we know, not what we feel, not what we are to each other. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Easy for you to say. You're strong, Taehyung. I feel broken. I crouched in front of him, gripping his shoulders gently. I'm broken too, but broken doesn't mean defeated. Tonight we spoke. We gave the world the truth. That's power, Jungkook, and we'll use it carefully, together. He swallowed, and I could see the storm in his chest beginning to shift just slightly into something steadier. Together, he whispered. The next few hours blurred into a frantic series of updates. Hype staff were scrambling. Social media had exploded into a frenzy. Some journalists praised our courage. Others framed it as rebellion, reckless, and dangerous. The contracts we revealed were downloaded, screenshots taken, and re-uploaded. Fans across the globe were organizing, sharing, demanding answers, demanding justice. Yet behind the chaos, I felt a creeping anxiety. The company wouldn't let this slide quietly. Legal threats, management ultimatums, attempts to spin the narrative it was coming, and fast. Jungkook sensed it too, running his hands over his face. They're going to sue, or worse, they'll drag everything we care about through the mud. I nodded. Maybe, but they can't take away what we have between us. Our story, our music, our truth. They can try to silence it. But the moment we went live, it was theirs to erase no longer. Hours later, the apartment was silent except for the occasional ping of alerts. Jungkook lay on the couch, curled in a ball, and I sat beside him, hand brushing his hair back. He flinched but didn't pull away. Taehyung, I hate how much I needed this, needed you, needed your voice to tell me it wasn't my fault. I tightened my hold. It wasn't. It never was. You were never the problem, Jungkook. I was trapped too, but I chose to fight this time, for both of us, and we will keep fighting together. The hours slipped by. We spoke in fragments, whispers about plans, about next steps, about surviving the storm we had unleashed. Haiba was now a visible threat, its tentacles of control and coercion exposed, yet they were clever and ruthless. We had to be smarter, faster, prepared. Every strategy we made involved careful timing, fan engagement, legal counsel, and media leaks, all orchestrated from the small apartment where our rebellion had begun. At one point, Jungkook broke the silence, voice raw and tired. Do you ever think we'll ever perform again? I took a long breath, the answer complex. Not the way we did, not under their control, but maybe we'll find a new way. A way that isn't dictated by fear or manipulation. A way that's ours. He looked at me then, eyes red, exhausted, but with a glimmer of hope. And us? Can we survive this together? I reached for his hand, holding it firmly. Yes, we'll survive. We already are. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to the storm raging online and in boardrooms across Seoul. Inside, two young men, once silenced and manipulated, sat side by side in a dimly lit room, plotting survival, plotting truth, plotting justice. They had exposed the lies, but now the real battle was about to begin. And I knew, no matter what HYB threw at us, no matter the lawsuits, the smear campaigns, the public scrutiny, or the media firestorm, we had something they couldn't touch: our voice, our music, and the truth of what we were to each other. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of control lifting, not completely, but enough to breathe, enough to hope, enough to begin again. And I knew the next steps would be dangerous, maybe destructive, but necessary. The world had seen us break. Tonight, we would show them we could rise. Morning came with a grim clarity. The rain had stopped, but the city seemed heavier, weighed down by the headlines that spread like wildfire overnight. Every corner of Seoul was buzzing: fans, reporters, employees, everyone digesting the live confession from last night. I woke to a dozen unread messages, some from journalists, some from lawyers, and others from friends urging caution. My phone vibrated again, but I silenced it. I couldn't start the day reacting. I needed to plan. Jungkook was already awake, sitting by the window, staring at the neon skyline, hands wrapped around a mug of tea like it could shield him from the storm. He didn't speak at first. He just sat, silent, as if listening for a sign that HYBE wouldn't retaliate with full force. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the tremor in his jaw. They'll come for us, he said finally, voice low but edged with steel. Hype won't just sit there. They'll sue, threaten, smear, whatever it takes. I know, I said. That's why we have to be faster, smarter. They have resources, yes, but we have truth, and we have fans. Millions of people now know what's real. He finally looked at me, eyes bloodshot but focused. Fans can't protect us from contract, from lawyers, from the executives who decide our fate. They can't, I admitted, but they can amplify our voices, make it impossible for hype to hide, and more importantly, I hesitated, searching for the right words. They can give us leverage. Every tweet, every post, every viral clip strengthens our position. We don't fight alone. He let out a sharp exhale, gripping the mug until his knuckles whitened. You sound like you've thought this through. I have, I said, but not alone. Yi, Taehyung, Namjoon, they're all ready. We've got allies, not just in fans but inside the industry. People who've seen the control, the manipulation, they'll help. We moved quickly, organizing strategy like a tactical operation. Legal counsel from trusted advisors joined the apartment via video calls, documents scanned and shared, timelines reconstructed, every press release, every threat from Hype, every hidden clause in our contracts was dissected. We weren't just responding, we were preparing to strike back. The first wave of Hype's retaliation came within hours. Lawyers emailed cease and desist orders, threats of injunctions, warnings that our actions could cost us our careers. Internal staff leaked messages to test loyalty, trying to gauge how much control they still held over us. But we weren't reacting emotionally. Every threat was met with a countermeasure. Every smear attempt cataloged for evidence. Fans mobilized faster than I could have imagined. Social media campaigns exploded. Hashtags trending worldwide. Digital petitions demanding accountability. Video compilations of our unreleased songs and interviews. They weren't just supporting us, they were turning the industry's power structures into glass, visible and fragile. Jungkook stayed close throughout, pacing when the pressure grew, muttering calculations of risk versus gain. But I could see him slowly recalibrating, absorbing the chaos and transforming it into focus. He wasn't just my partner in love, he was my partner in survival. In this war we had declared. The apartment became our command center. Screens lined the walls, timelines of Hybe's responses, legal documents, news reports, and fan reactions flashing in real time. Yi coordinated leaks to responsible outlets, ensuring we controlled the narrative. Taehyung monitored social media trends, noting spikes in global engagement. Namjoon orchestrated communications with international legal counsel. Every move was precise, deliberate, calculated for maximum impact. In the quiet moments, Jungkook and I spoke little words replaced by glances, by shared tension, by silent acknowledgement of the stakes. Sometimes he'd reach for my hand and I'd squeeze back, grounding us both. I realized then that the fight wasn't just about contracts, exposure, or Hype's manipulation. It was about reclaiming our lives, our dignity, and our bond. By midday, Hype escalated. A public statement appeared online, painting our actions as reckless and damaging to the company's brand. Stock values wavered. Internal staff were called in for emergency meetings. They tried to spin the narrative, but the damage was irreversible. Fans had the truth, and the truth couldn't be spun away. Jungkook sat beside me, exhausted but determined. "We're winning hearts," he said quietly. "Not against them, but for ourselves." "Yes," I replied, And that's what matters. Our careers, our music, those are secondary. This is about living, breathing, being honest. And nothing, not lawyers, not contracts, not executives, can take that from us. Late afternoon brought HYB's legal counterattack, a sealed letter threatening criminal action. Yi read it aloud, carefully parsing the legal jargon. Every clause, every threat, every possible repercussion was noted. But for the first time, I didn't feel panic. I felt resolve. They wanted fear to control us. But fear had no power here, not anymore. I smiled faintly, the weight of the night heavy, but tempered by the connection I felt with every fan watching. Let's finish this together, I said, fingers brushing Jungkook's again. Not just for us, but for everyone who deserves to see the truth. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me, for staying by my side even when everything felt impossible. I couldn't have done this without you. Every step we take, every truth we speak, it's because of you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.